Hi, I'm Anastasia and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk about how you can code on a real quantum computer for free. A quantum computer that looks like this, cooled to nearly 0 Kelvin temperatures, colder than space. I'm going to show you how to access a quantum computer for free, code the Hello Quantum world in both quantum assembly language and Qiskit, and show you how to run this on IBM's real quantum chips. And yes, you can do this along with me for free. Did I mention that? Isn't that crazy? Quantum computers cost millions of dollars. D-Wave was selling theirs for $15 million. And you don't have to be a scientist to do this. The cool thing about Qiskit is that anyone can get access to this system. I've chosen to cover IBM Q system today, but if you're interested in another quantum platform, comment down below which tutorial you'd be interested in and I'd be happy to make it. Let's get started and look at IBM's quantum experience. First, let's navigate to quantum-computing.ibm.com and create an account. Once you've created an account and you've logged in, you'll see this homepage. It shows you your recent circuits and experiments and the quantum chips that you can use. They're called backends in the code. On the right, these are the chips that are available to the free tier accounts. There are partner programs where you can get access to larger quantum chips, but even here on this free tier, you have access to quantum chips that have up to 15 qubits. There's also a quantum simulator with 32 qubits. A simulator is just a classical computer pretending to be a quantum computer. You can use the simulator to test your algorithms and code. Your jobs are put in a queue, so sometimes it can take a while before your code is run on the machine. That's this number here. Lots of other people are using the chips, so sometimes you've got to be patient. But the simulator is always available for you to test on. Click on the chips here to get more information. This is the diagram of the quantum chip. The round nodes are the qubits, numbered, and the lines between them are the connectivity of the chip. This actually really matters when you're building quantum circuits for real machines. For example, a CNOT gate entangles 2 qubits together. But what if those 2 qubits aren't right next to each other? If you want to do a CNOT gate on qubits 0 and 2, they're not directly connected, like 0 and 1 and 0 and 14 are. So what happens in the background is that there's a swap gate applied, and it swaps the state of the 2 qubits so the states are right next to each other. Because quantum circuits are still error prone and we have coherence time to worry about, coherence time being the amount of time quantum information can be stored in the qubit, we want to minimize the amount of swap gates that we do. It's a graph theory problem to rearrange these nodes and channels for the most efficient quantum circuit. However, we don't have to worry about any of this on the simulator because it's a magical, fully connected quantum chip. Below, we have the error rates. Error rates are when the outcome differs from what you expect. However, because quantum is probabilistic, error rates are how much the outcomes differ from the distribution we expect. For example, if you have a qubit in perfect superposition, you expect 50% of the outcomes of the measurements to be 0 and 50% to be 1. In real quantum computers, this won't be 50% perfectly. There's different techniques for determining error rates, like quantum state tomography and randomized benchmarking, but that's a whole other video. So you see this one qubit is not doing so hot. The error rate is higher here, so if you're writing circuits and you know that this particular qubit was having some issues, you may want to rearrange the circuit and not use this one too much. The basis gates are what operations all the single qubit operations are compiled down to. U1, U2, U3 gates are rotation gates with different numbers of parameters, where each parameter is the axis of rotation. The U3 gate is the most general of all single qubit quantum gates because you can use all 3 parameters with any rotation to create any gate that you can think of. U2 here means that we use 2 parameters and U1 uses 1. So there's nothing that you can do with U1 and U2 that you can't do with U3. The CNOT error rate is error rate when applying the controlled NOT gate between 2 qubits. One qubit is the control qubit and the other is the target qubit. The CNOT gate flips the target qubit if and only if the control qubit is in the 1 state. This gate is really important because the CNOT entangles 2 qubits, so a high error rate here would be really disastrous for quantum computing. Below you have even more information about the quantum chips. Number of qubits, when it went online, and when it was last calibrated. You'll usually see single qubit operations on circuits written as X, Y, and Z gates, gates for the rotation about each axis, but what the code translates it to is these basis gates, these more general gates with a different number of parameters. Number of shots means how many times you'll run the same circuit. Due to noise in real circuits, the number is not always aligned in theory, so it's better to have more shots. On the simulator, 1024 shots is standard. By the way, you'll use a different amount of credits depending on how many shots you use on the real machines, so just be careful there. Next, let's check out the circuit composer. If you hover here to the left, you can see it pop up on the sidebar. Let's click through to that, and now you can see a list of your circuits pop up. You can also import OpenQASM code. QASM stands for Quantum Assembly Language. Some of the other quantum programming language, like Microsoft's Q#, have OpenQASM support as well. Let's go ahead and create a new circuit. So here we have the Visual Circuit Composer. You program a quantum computer by doing gates, similar to classical gates, but quantum gates behave entirely differently. The difference is that quantum gates have to be reversible. If they're not reversible, we lose information. An irreversible process destroys information, which destroys the superposition, and we can't do that until the very end of the circuit when we measure it. With classical computing, there's a set of commonly used gates: AND, NOT, OR, NAND, XOR, and FANOUT to perform any computation in classical computing. They are irreversible because information is lost. For example, when we do an OR gate on 2 bits and output a 1, we can't reverse it. We don't know in this case if the first bit was a 1, the second bit was a 1, or both bits were 1. So we can't use any of these gates in quantum computing. What can we use? Quantum has their own set of gates. Let's add a Hadamard gate to the circuit, which puts a qubit in an equal superposition of the 0 state and the 1 state. Also, let's then add a CNOT gate, which stands for controlled NOT gate. This gate works by bit flipping the second qubit, labeled here Q1, only if the first qubit is in the 1 state. This creates an entanglement between the 2 qubits. And then we measure it out. What do you think will happen? Here you'll get to choose a backend. Now we're gonna run this on the simulator. Give your experiment a name, click the save button, and hit run. We ran 1024 shots of this experiment. The first qubit is in equal superposition, meaning it has a 50% chance of collapsing into the 0 state and a 50% chance of collapsing into the 1, plus or minus some noise. As expected, the results are 50%-ish in the 0-0 state. This means the first qubit is 0, the second qubit is 0. The other 50%-ish is in the 1-1 state. If the first qubit is in the 0 state, the CNOT gate does nothing to the second qubit, which remains in the 0 state. However, if the first qubit is in the 1 state, it bit flips the second qubit from the 0 state to the 1 state. So what will happen if you add an X gate? The X gate in a quantum computer does a bit flip. Here, if we apply to the second qubit, the state of it flips to 1. Let's look at the circuit composer and you can see the X gate was added here. What do you think will happen? Let's run that. Like we expected, now the states are around 50% for a 0 on qubit 1 and a 1 on qubit 2. Since the first qubit is in the 0 state, nothing happens to the second qubit. It remains in the 1 state after the bit flip X gate. And it's a 50% chance of being a 1 on the first qubit and a 0 on the second qubit. Now, the visual composer is awesome, but what does the code actually look like? Here you can see this little script tag symbol. If you click on it, you can see what the actual OpenQASM code looks like. The QReg is the quantum register command. It creates an array of qubits. The CReg command declares an array of classical bits. Now, before we go through the rest, let's talk about all the gates. Unary gates are operators on 1 qubit. The X gate we've seen before, and it's a bit flip, which means it's a pi rotation around the X-axis on the Bloch sphere. So now, a qubit that was in the 0 state becomes a 1. This gate is written in OpenQASM like X, space, and whatever qubit you want to apply it to. You can apply the Y and Z gates the same ways on the qubit. They rotate halfway around the sphere around the Y and Z axis. They're written in OpenQASM code like Y or Z and whatever qubit you want to apply it to. Arbitrary rotations can be applied using the rotation gates. The X, Y, and Z gates are just special cases of these rotation gates. You can also rotate by pi, pi over 2, pi over 4, whichever you like. The Rx rotates around the x-axis, the Ry around the y, the Rz around the z. And remember, the rotation is around the axis, not on it. We've also seen the Hadamard gate already, denoted by the H. This gate takes a qubit from an initially prepared state, such as a 0 or 1, and applies a superposition. We also have I, the identity operator. It doesn't change the state at all. So why do we even have them? In some platforms, there's no way to wait for another operation to complete, so you'd apply an identity operator to make sure it actually does nothing. In OpenQASM, there's also a barrier command to tell the circuit to wait 1 gate unit of time, but you might see the identity gate as well. Next are the binary gates. Binary gates operate on 2 qubits, and we can start doing some really cool stuff now. The CNOT gate is denoted CX. There's a control qubit and a target qubit. The CNOT applies an X operator, or a bit flip, to the target qubit only if the control qubit is in the 1 state. The Hadamard creates a superposition, and the CNOT entangles the qubits. Schrödinger-set entanglement is the defining characteristic of quantum mechanics. There's also a controlled Z gate that is denoted CZ. The CZ gate is very similar to the CNOT gate, but instead of being an X gate that is applied to the target qubit if the control qubit is 1, the CZ gate applies a Z gate. You write this in an OpenQASM as CZ. The swap gate swaps the state of 2 qubits. It's this element with 2 X's connected by a line. You write this as swap, and the first qubit and the second qubit. I mentioned this gate a little bit when I talked about the connectivity of quantum chips, where you would do a swap if the qubits aren't directly connected to each other. There's also 2 ternary operators which operate on 3 qubits. They're very similar to gates that we've already seen. The Toffoli gate is also known as the CC-NOT, so the controlled NOT gate. It's similar to the C-NOT gate, but instead of one control qubit and one target qubit, there are two control qubits and one target qubit. Integration happens only if both of the control qubits are in the one state. The Fredkin gate is also known as the controlled swap gate, or the C-swap. There's one control qubit and two qubits to be swapped. The swap gate only happens if the control qubit is in the one state. Remember, you can always drag and drop the gates in the Visual Circuit Composer and then switch to the code to see how to write that command. For more information on OpenQASM, I'm going to link the original paper down in the description below. There's a few other commands like reset, conditional statements, declarations that you can also use in OpenQASM. So now that we've gotten comfortable with gates, let's code the same thing in Qiskit. First, I want to take you through the Jupyter Notebook system. The IBM Experience also has in-browser Jupyter Notebooks where you can code in the notebooks in the browser. If you're not familiar with Jupyter Notebooks, they're like documents with embedded code in Markdown, and you can run code directly from them. There are a ton of tutorials that have already been built within the Qiskit platform. There's a list of notebooks that teach you the fundamentals of quantum computing and a bunch of advanced features. You can also get this code out of your browser and run it locally. To download Qiskit, you want to run pip install Qiskit. Then you can actually use the Jupyter Notebook or just write the code straight into Python. So now that we're all set up, let's write the code. First, we need to do the necessary imports. So we want to import the quantum circuit, the quantum register, the classical register, execution, basic error, which has the quantum simulator, and IBM-Q from Qiskit. Also, I want to import plot_histogram from the Qiskit visualization, just so we can see some cool charts. One change you'll need to make locally is that you need to add your API key in at the beginning to connect to the IBM-Q platform. To find your API key, navigate to the Profile Settings page from the IBM-Q Quantum Experience. Get the API key here and add it in. Then we use the load_account method on IBM-Q to load the provider. First, we want to set up the quantum and the classical registers. This is done using the quantum register function and the classical register function. Then we want to use the quantum circuit function and pass in this quantum and classical register to create the circuit. From there, we can apply the gates to the circuit. The number is the qubit that you want the gate applied to. So first, we want to apply a Hadamard gate. So we do this by writing circuit.h, and the 0 in here is the first qubit. Then we want to entangle the qubits using the C-NOT gate. We do this by writing circuit.cx with 0 and 1. Remember, 0 is the control qubit and 1 is the target qubit. Now we want to measure the qubit at the end. We want to measure all the quantum bits and all the classical bits in our registers. You can also apply the draw method to see what the circuit looks like. Now we can actually execute the circuit on the simulator. We set this up using the basic error getBackend method. We execute the circuit by using the execute function, and we pass in our circuit and our backend. We get the results from the circuit by using the result method, and specifically we want to get the counts. Now we can print out the counts and look at our pretty little histogram, and this matches similarly to what we saw. Check out this chart and your circuit. So that gets you all set up to run code on a real quantum computer. And remember, I've posted all this code and all the resources in the description below. I'd recommend going through the tutorials here on the Qiskit website and in the Jupyter Notebooks on the IBM-Q platform. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you're ready to start coding quantum circuits on your own. If so, please destroy the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I'd really appreciate it. Comment below if you have any questions or you want me to do more tutorials on different quantum programming languages. And remember to hit subscribe so you know when I post these videos.